Hello there. I'm coming back to you to continue our study in Philippians chapter number 4. And of course, the book's theme is joy. And we're looking in chapter number 4 how that we succor together for the faith of the gospel. And it simply means just to help one another, but more intensely than that, just to be there for one another, to love one another, and to care for one another. And Paul lays out the way that we to have joy is in this chapter by taking care of one another. And so I want to look at this evening in verses 9 through 18. In verses 1 through 8, we saw the outline of love and the unity that we must have as God's people. But today I want to look at verses 9 through 18 and see the order of love. I want to say to you that the order of love is simply this: just communication between God's people. And so look with me in verse number 9. He says, "Those things which ye have both learned and received and heard and seen in me, do, and the peace of God shall be with you. But I rejoice in the Lord greatly that now at the last your care of me hath flourished again, wherein ye were also careful, but ye lacked opportunity. Not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content. I know both how to be abased, and I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things I am instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me." So we see Paul here. He's saying to us that we ought to, first of all, share in our labor. In communicating, we need to make sure that we are letting one another know when we need prayer, when we need anything among God's people. And we ought to be caring enough. We set the stage in the outline of love and our motivation with the brethren, and our moderation with the brethren, and our modesty or our purity with the brethren. Too many times in our world, the devil has been very crafty to teach us that every person, no matter who they are, is crooked. They want something out of us and they don't want to give back. But there needs to be that love restored among God's people that we might help one another. This is where we're going to find the joy that we seek. And that is to start trusting one another, start believing in what the Lord has done in his people, and allowing him to do something among us, not just for me, but for all of us. And so he says, share in your labor. He says, tell each other about the struggles that you're having. So many things that we struggle with, we feel like we're the only one that's done it. And the devil's very adamant about convincing us that we're the only one that's ever been through whatever it is we're going through. And he's just a liar. There's nothing common to man, nothing to one man. No man is an island. Every one of us go through the same things. And if we'd talk about it and love one another through it, we'd be able to find the Lord's will and find that joy and that help that we need to get through those things. In verses 11 through 13, we see how not only we share in our labor, but we have to find our strength in the Lord. Most people quote that verse, "I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me." But they don't even know what the chapter is saying. They don't even know what's going on in the chapter. And Paul is simply pointing out the fact that we can love one another, we can trust one another, we can get through heartache when people hurt us, and we can restore that trust in him and in each other when we look to him. He will give us the strength to do that. The devil has been, he has most expertisely, if I can say it that way, that's probably not even a word, but with much expertise, how about that? He has caused us in our churches, in our homes, and in our own lives to separate, and to separate. Back people into corners. Tell them they're no good. Tell them God's finished with them. He's an expert at it. He loves to single us out. But I want to say to you today that our strength is in the Lord, and that He allows us to heal from past hurt and love one another again. Not only do we see that in those things, but in verse number 14, he says, notwithstanding ye have well done that ye did communicate with my affliction. Now, Paul was saying that the Philippians were sending him money, support, goods, things that he needed. That's what they were sending to him. Now, ye Philippians know also that in the beginning of the gospel, when I departed from Macedonia, no church communicated with me as concerning giving and receiving, but ye only. For even in Thessalonica ye sent once and again unto my necessity. Not that because I desire a gift, but I desire fruit that may abound unto your account. But I have all and abound. I am full, having received of Epaphroditus the things which were sent from you, an odor, a sweet-smelling, and acceptable, well-pleasing to God. I want you to see this sacrifice of love. Paul knew that he was in need. He knew that there was people out there that loved him, that wanted to help him, and he allowed them to do so. In turn, he helped them. And then he said, when they helped me, I was not necessarily wanting a gift for myself or wanting myself to be comforted, but I wanted them to be able to give so that they could enjoy the blessings of God. And I never will forget a good friend of mine. We were at a meeting and we found out about a man that had a need. And I said, we need to take up an offering for him. And he said to me, he said, well, let's just wait one day. He said, I'm all about helping people, but it could be that God's going to do something for him that will be unusual to take care of his need. Let's just see what God does and pray about what God would have us to do. And we waited a day, and God miraculously met that need. And I want to say to you that God's in the business of meeting our needs. He loves us and wants to bring those miraculous things to us. And boy, we ought to be praying that others' needs be met and that we find a way to help whatever God might instruct us to do. And in the meantime, understand that God, they say his teaspoon's bigger than my shovel. And I've never in my life found that to not be true. I'm telling you, anytime that I have done what God told me to do, God has always come back with more than I could have ever expected of quote unquote losing and giving. He's always given me way more back than what I gave. This thing of helping one another and serving one another, it's all about the joy that God wants us to have. You'll never find more joy than when you'll find joy in helping one another. Bless your heart tonight, and I pray that you'll be able to see these things and find that joy that God's wanting so desperately to give to you in this order of love.